So, so then I joined this course called accessories design in college. And I was 16, so I was quite young. And this course, it was a very broad discipline, but essentially it had 4 sections in which we were learning skills. So the 4 areas were jewelry design, footwear, bags and belts, and millinery. So we had 4 areas that we learned, and we were taught skills over 3 years in these 4 areas. Now, jewelry design, let me talk a bit of jewelry design. So we are talking about, sorry, let me go back to the previous screen. Yeah, so now in jewelry design, it involved understanding precious metals and gemology, and we were working with hand and AutoCAD to design. As you can see in some of these pictures here, we were taught how to draw out pieces of jewelry in scale and design it. We were also taught AutoCAD, how to design jewelry on the computer and then apply it to, literally physically make the pieces of jewelry. So here we were working with materials like gems, gold, silver, which is precious metals. We were working with wood. We were working with other metals. So in jewelry design, we had 2 categories, which was precious jewelry, which was diamonds, gems, gold, silver, platinum, really expensive materials. And then we had an area called costume jewelry, which was an area where we were working with things like wood, wicker, craft materials, plastics, different other materials which was non-precious, where we were not thinking about weights and grams and things like that. So we had broadly those 2 categories. And my first job actually was related to jewelry design. So we trained in jewelry design in college. And then one out of the many spheres we trained in. And my first job was with a company called V&M Jewelers. They were based in Calicut, which is in southern India. And we were working with gold, precious and semi-precious stones. And it was a very, if you look at that little scale on the image, you see we were working in very small scale. So all our designing was in grams. We were working at very, very fine, minute weightages we were working with. And it was a very small scale of work. And, each of the gems had to be set with a particular grammage. The diamonds had to be assessed, graded. So we were learning things like that as well. Diamond grading, gemology, how to cut precious stones to get the maximum shine out of it. So in that particular job, it taught me to work at very fine scales, and weightages. And the material mainly that one was working with was gold and silver and platinum and gems. So these were the kind of materials. So you understand that the product design now, the decision making here was the material that you work with, which is precious metal or gems, and the scale, you're working at a very small scale. Yeah. So the nature of this particular group of product design is very different from the all other categories of product design. So now back to the course, what we did next was we learned footwear, in which we were mainly working with leather, cork, rubber, things like that. So we learned how to make shoes. We designed uppers for a lot of shoes, went and sold it to a company called Bata. So we sold some of our designs there. So we were working within the industry and selling, our designs, being innovative with different kinds of heels and different kinds of material. It was extremely exciting, and I would say quite cutting edge. So footwear design is quite cutting edge. There are rules but those rules can be broken. So, so you would find a lot of present fashion designers, they really, not only with their clothing, but they really break the norms with footwear as well. You would have floating heels and transparent heels and block heels and different kinds of ways in which people can wear footwear. So it was quite interesting and exciting overall. And then we moved to, so we obviously did a lot of designing with footwear, as you can see in that image. And we worked with a lot of uppers and did a lot of leather work. And then we learned hat making, which is millinery. So we designed headgear. This was a very short course though, because I think generally in India, hat wearing is not very common, but there's more of a what do you call it? There's more of a demand for hats and fascinators here. So there's a lot of scope for millinery work here than I would say in India. So our course there was quite short, but that's something definitely worth exploring. There are a lot of places where you can learn it, and it's a very specialized area. So we worked with a lot of mesh and woven materials, leather in millinery. And basketry as well. So we did a bit of basketry during that course. And we're working in slightly larger scales, as you can see. So the other sphere that we worked in was something called bags and belts. Now in this sphere, so this we're looking at scale wise a bit bigger. So we're working at slightly larger scales, therefore more direct ergonomics, as they would say. It needs to be able to sit properly on the body, mold to the body, depending on how you're wearing the bag. Is it on the shoulder? Are you holding it in your hand? Is it sling across? So there was all those interesting things that, was ergonomic related with regards to bags and belts. And here, what we did is we did a lot of worked a lot with leather, I would say, mainly with leather, because leather is kind of I would say now coming back to material. See, now earlier jewelry design was all about gold and precious metals and gems. So we specialized in those materials. Now we're moving to different kinds of materials, which is leather. And leather is the raw material that it can be steamed, it can be molded, stitched, punched, split. You can cut and weave it. It can be made to absorb water. It can be made resistant to water. It can be also made completely waterproof. It just depends on the material. And it can be used for clothing, accessories, bookbinding, crafts. So it's a very versatile and rewarding raw material. And it's a highly skilled artisan material. And it can take years and even, generations to actually perfect it. So, to create the most beautiful Italian leather, it takes generations to kind of perfect it. So I really enjoyed working with leather at that point, So I wanted to just sort of focus on this course, and you can study this course or learn jewelry, bags, belts, and leather in the University of Arts, London, and the British Jewelry Institute, and a lot of design schools. Design Museum does a course as well here. And the salaries are, I would say, the salaries are quite generous in this sphere, because you're quite specialized. You've learned the materials really well. You're working with precious materials if you're doing jewelry. So it's a very lucrative area to sort of get into. So if you are exploring this, I can tell you a lot more information. I can send it over to Shefa, to Jennifer, and she can pass it on. And but this is a very lucrative sphere that you can get into.